Our greatest need now is to reach beyond government, to enlist the legions of the concerned and the committed. What has to be done by government and people together, or it will not be done at all. The lesson of past agony is that without the people we can do nothing. With the people we can do everything.
Who's as adamant about his or her position as I am about mine, whom you think is sharp. Seriously, we know that. And another thing, we heard him say that...
Welcome to another edition of And Another Thing. I am your host, Larry Elder, and this is our second presidential presentation. We did the Reagan Library a few months ago, and now I'm at the Richard Nixon Library in Yorba Linda, California. And I just had a little tour of the place, and I'm reminded of some of the things that Richard Nixon did. I've always felt that Richard Nixon has been treated pretty unfairly by historians. This is a guy who, as far as the left is concerned, should have been given credit for establishing the EPA, for signing the Clean Air Act. He did all that. He also, I'm told, and I'm going to look into this, I'm told that the story that I'd heard when I was a young kid is not true. And the story is this. Martin Luther King was arrested during the 1960 presidential campaign when Richard Nixon was running against Jack Kennedy. And the story is that the supporters of MLK sent identically worded letters to the Kennedy campaign and to the Nixon campaign. And the story is Nixon did not respond, but Kennedy did. And in churches that following Sunday all across America, that was the story, and the black vote went tremendously towards the Democratic Party. People don't realize that as recently as 1956 or so, almost 39% or so of blacks voted for the Republican Party. That began to change after this incident happened with Nixon, Kennedy, and MLK. And I mentioned that when I was being escorted on my tour here. And I was told that that story is not true, there's more to it. That Nixon did respond, and they're going to show me some of the letters apparently that Nixon wrote regarding MLK's arrest, and that he did apparently respond, contrary to what I always thought. So I'll find out about it, and we'll talk about it next week on Another Thing, because I really want to find out if that's true. If it is true that Nixon did do something, if only to contact and maybe make some phone calls, that is a big deal, because Mary from Oceanside, when it comes to listening and digesting news and political issues from various media outlets, is there a method or techniques you suggest we use to make sure that we are getting the straight scoop? Well, my advice is always, always, always listen defensively. Don't assume that what you're hearing is the truth, especially when you're listening to outlets like CNN, MSNBC, if you're reading the LA Times, New York Times. And I'm not taking a slam at them. There's a book by a UCLA poli-sci and econ professor named Tim Groves-Close called Left Turns, where he looks at the 20 major sources of news in our country, and 18 of them are to the right. 18 of them are to the left. Only 2 are to the right. And the 2 are to the right are the Washington Times and, of course, Fox News. Outside of that, everything else is to the left, including, by the way, the Wall Street Journal. We're talking about the news section of the Wall Street Journal, not the editorial section. The news section is just as left as the New York Times and as the LA Times, according to Tim Groves-Close. Why? You hire reporters from the same pool everybody else hires them from. They all come out of these schools. They all, if they have journalism degrees, they're all left-wing people. And the reason I say that is back in 1980, there was a poll of the students coming out of University of Columbia. Columbia has the top journalism school in the country. And they were asked, do you feel that workers get a fair shake from our capitalistic system? And overwhelmingly they said no. Question, do you believe that government should run large corporations? 40 to 50% of these kids said yes. Governments should run large corporations. So these are the people right now, fast forward 20, 30 years later, who are senior editors, who are the ones deciding what's going to be news. And so this is what we're up against. And so understand, whenever you see something, be skeptical. I'll give you an example. ABC News. Jonathan Karl is a reporter. And during the campaign, as you know, there's this big issue over Mitt Romney's tax rate. And Jonathan Karl went on television and he said Mitt Romney pays a lower effective tax rate than a mechanic making $75,000 a year. Even liberal organizations like the National Policy Institute said that that was not true. A person making $75K, who's married, got a house, couple of kids, has all sorts of deductions, this, that, and the other, he pays a lower effective federal income tax rate than Mitt Romney. No question about it. Yet this guy went.
I hope you enjoyed this small excerpt. If you want to see the full video, got to be in El Dorado. Go to my website, larryelder.com, log in, fill out the form. It'll cost you about $4.75 a month, or about the price of a mocha frappuccino latte at your favorite coffee house. As you can tell, I don't like coffee. I'm a tea drinker. See you next time.